We are live.
Fala pessoal, boa noite. Vocês estão ouvindo a gente aí? Aqui já tem o Gustavo, o Márcio. Se estiverem ouvindo bem aí, por favor, dá um ok aí pelo chat. Acho que estão ouvindo. Vamos só esperar mais um pouquinho. We just wait a little bit, okay?
All right.
For everybody to join. We already have some people watching.
Okay, Ray. Whenever you say, I'm ready.
Pessoal, só mais um minutinho, tá? Porque eu acabei de mandar o link aqui para todo mundo, então só vou esperar mais um minuto aqui para ver se todo mundo entra aí, tá? A gente já vai começar aqui. Só lembrando que vai ser um webcast em inglês, tá? Então, como eu falei, é uma ótima oportunidade aí para vocês treinarem o inglês de vocês também. E se vocês tiverem alguma dúvida, etc., como vai ser uma sessão de code, né? Ele vai mostrar algumas coisas com código e tudo mais. Então, eu gostaria de deixar mais para o final as perguntas, se não tiver nenhum tipo de problema, tá? Mas, logicamente, se vocês estiverem meio que no meio aí, se quiserem falar alguma coisa, não tem problema. Mas eu gostaria de deixar um pouco mais para o final as perguntas, tá? Deixa eu só um momentinho. Eu acho que já dá para começar já tem bastante gente aí. Fala, galera. Então, muito boa noite. Mais uma vez aqui estou fazendo um webcast. Meu nome é Ray Carneiro. E hoje temos um convidado mais do que especial aqui, que é o Marinko. Ele é da Sérvia e ele vai falar aqui hoje como que a gente trabalha com .NET Core 2.0 Web API. Tem um pessoal da Sérvia também que está online, que trabalha lá com ele. Então, em alguns momentos eu vou falar português, em alguns momentos eu vou falar inglês, tá bom? Para aí, para todos que estão aqui assistindo possam compreender. So guys, thank you so much. I think there is people also from Serbia here, right? So thank you so much for joining. We will get started now. So Marinko, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and to present a great content for the Brazilian audience. So you may get started, please, and present yourself and get started, okay?
Okay, thank you, Ray, for calling me and for organizing this event. So, okay, I will start right away with the presentation. So I could share the screen right away, and during the presentation, I could introduce myself and what are we going to be talking about tonight. So I think this is the best way, right?
Yeah, thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay, if you see the wolf right now, just tell me.
Yeah, I can see that.
Great. So I will just start the stuff I need in here. Okay, well, okay, you can see this, right?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Great. So this is our topic for tonight. So .NET Core 2.0 Web API. We are going to do some CRUD operations with the repository pattern. Basically about me, my name is Marinko Spasojevic. I am from the Serbia, and currently I'm working as a .NET Angular developer in Vega IT Sourcing. You can see it here, it's a great company from Novi Sad, the town I'm living in. And by doing this also, I'm a co-writer at CoMaze. It's blog articles which writing myself and my colleague Vladimir Pechanac. And if you have time, well, you can always check it out on this link below in the footer. We have very good articles related to this topic I'm going to talk about tonight. What are we going to talk? It's basically first, after creation the project, we will create the repository pattern with all basic content we need for it. So the context class, repository classes, repository user classes, and of course, finally, the repository wrapper, which will wrap all our repository logic. And basically, we will use that repository to handle the HTTP requests in the controller in the Web API. So basically, that should be it. And if everybody is ready, I would get myself into coding right away.
Yeah, please.
Great. So let's start the Visual Studio. Okay, I'm going to create a new ASP.NET Core Web application, and I will just call it Web App. It is going to be Web API, free and clean. We don't need that. So the first thing first, whenever I start these kind of projects, I like to change my line settings.json file. So my endpoint, I like to keep them on 5000. And also, just tell me, Ray, do I need to increase the code?
Yeah, please. If you can give a little bit zoom, it's going to be better.
Is this okay?
A little bit more.
This one?
Yeah, better.
Okay, because it is pretty much big to me right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have changed to 5000 the endpoint. Also, I will remove this part because I don't want to start the browser after the project starts for IIS and for this command name here project. So I will save the launch settings, and that's it for now. I will start with 3 new projects, which will use me for this project, and I will use it as a helper, like contracts, entities, and repository. So let's just create them. They are going to be the base class library.NET Core projects. So first I will call contracts, and all the interfaces I will place and stack inside. Then another one. It is going to be the same, just with name entities for our models and model logic. And the last one is going to be repository, self-explanatory, isn't it? For repository logic. Great, just to import all of them inside our main project because I will need all of them. So just contracts, entities, and repository inside. Now, first of all, my models will inherit from one interface, and I will create it in the entities project. So it will be with name that class interface. I will call it iEntity, and it is going to be the public interface iEntity with just one shared property for all the models. Is going to be the GUID. Just to say before I start this project, I'm going to connect this project to MySQL database, which I already have prepared, so to not lose the time in here. And the database has 2 tables, owner and account, and they are related to each other, and we will see through the models how they are related. So this is my first entity, first interface, iEntity, and now I'm going to create my models. In the entity class, I'm going to create new folder and name it models. Inside, let's create first class. I will call it owner. This model should be the representation of my table inside the database. Oops, this is wrong. I'm sorry. Just something like this. Okay. It is going to be a representation on the table. So because it needs to point to the table, I need to use this decorator attribute. Say, okay, you're the table. Which table? Well, owner is the table. Then I will create all the properties I need because this inherits from iEntity. Logically, it needs to have that ID prop, so it's going to be with ID. And this ID is a primary key, so we need to decorate it with key. Also, you see these 2 imports I have imported for both this and this attribute. And also, I did this intentionally. My primary key columns in the tables are with names owner ID and account ID. and we can map it like this with just ID. So if you have such situation, you can use the column attribute, and inside that attribute you just give the name of your column. So we will create all the others properties we need. So this would be string name, and inside I will decorate it with required. And if we have an error message, just something name is required. Also, I will give another constraint, string length. So if you want to constrain this length, I will say if someone had name with 60 characters or more, that would be, or more than 60, it would be invalid. And error message invalid with more than, like this. It doesn't matter, just to see how this works. Another one, it is date time, and it will be date of birth. And because it is going to be also required, just let's copy, paste this, and say date of birth. And finally, I will have its string, its address, and also it's required. So I will just say address is required. Because I will need the second model, I will create another class. I will call it account, but these classes are the same as the previous one, just with the different properties. So I will just copy paste that to save us the time, and of course import those imports we need. And as you can see, it's column account ID. It has ID from iEntity, and also it has the owner ID. So you see the relation between the owner and account table. Great. Once we have our models, now we can continue to build the context class for fetching the data from the database. We will build that class inside the repository. And I just want to mention one thing. When you use .NET Core 2.0 in your main project, you are going to have this package. It's ASP.NET Core All, and inside it you will find Entity Core, Entity Framework Core. But because I'm going to use it inside this, you could reference that package inside this package, this project. But I'm not advising to use that because it will create a full local path on your computer. So imagine if you upload your code and someone try to download it, maybe they don't have that folder structure, something like that. So it's always much safer to install the package you need. So I will use the NuGet Package Manager and install Microsoft Entity Framework Core. Just place it inside, pretty quick. It's going to finish that. All right.
Here's the question. For these, you are using the latest version, right?
Yeah, if anyone wants to question, it would be great. If you need, it's okay, but maybe it is better after all. So after this, we could create a new class inside, and we'll just call it repository context. And of course, I will delete this one. I don't need it. It is going to be public class, and because it should be the base class for our repository, I need to inherit from this. Of course, it came from Entity Framework Core. So inside, I will need my constructor, and it needs to accept DB context options. And it wants to its base constructor to send those options as well. Okay, and right now we're needing our properties to fetch the data from the tables. So let's do something like this. We need DB set. Of course, in here it will be of type owner, and I will call it owners. To fix this, first I need to import the entities. I will import the contracts as well because I will be needing them later. And just to import this, well, using the record. The second one is going to be dbset count, and I will call it. I always call it in plural because it will return more than one owner, of course, more than one account. With this one, we are okay with our context class. It needs the connection string. Yeah.
Just for the people that don't have knowledge about the dbset, just to clarify, the dbset is the representation of the table on the database, right? So everything you're going to do with the database, like crude, like inserting, create, read, update, delete, etc.
That's right. That's right.
dbset, right? Okay.
Yeah. Those properties are going to fetch the data. Inside them, we are getting all the data from that table. And this one will catch all the data from that table. After that, we can use some link queries to filter the data which we need and how we need it, to order by them, to use some condition stuff and something like that. So this is the base thing. This will create the connection for us after we send them the connection string. You will see this just in a minute. And then those properties are going to fetch the data from the current tables. Okay? Okay, so let's continue. Inside my app settings.json file, I will create connection string. So I will call it something like MySQL connection. And for the sake of not mistyping it, I will just do this stuff. So you're creating the JSON object, as you see, and it has the key, whatever name you like, and the complete path with the username and password. Don't worry about this password. It's who knows what it is. And of course, what's the name of the database. So right now, app settings is here configured. We can then go to configure our services. What I'm going to show you is a little better way to write some service registration inside the startup class. If you see this configuration method, no, this one, configure services method, inside we are configuring our services and placing them inside the inversion of control container of .NET Core Framework. But if you have a big project, right now we don't have it, but if you have the big project, you will have a lot of services to use. And then inside here, you will have hundreds of code, which is not very maintainable and not very readable. So what I like to do to keep it maintainable and readable is to create extension methods, and then just to implement those extension methods inside. And you will see how I'm going to do it. Inside the web app, I will create a new folder. I will call it extensions in that new folder. And inside it, I will create a new class with name service extensions, because we are going to extend these services. Okay. So service extensions. Base logic around the extension methods is that they need to be the static methods and they need to reside inside the static class. So I said it is static class service extensions, and I'm going to create public static. It's not going to return anything. Configure MySQL context, and the first param always for the extension methods is with keyword this. iService extension. Oh, nope. iService extension. My mistake. Collection. That's something I need. And I'm going to need another property. Configuration. That's what I'm going to do. These kind of methods, extension methods, are called upon the type. So if I have the first as this, that means that whenever I call the variable with this type, I can with services dot and then call every time this kind of method. So this would be the first parameter to send. We will never send this parameter because we are calling this method upon this parameter. Okay, and you will see an example right in a minute. What we want to do here is to take our connection string, fetch our connection string from the app settings. And I will just say use the config. And the config is provided for us from here. So .NET Core provides us when he creates this project, and I will send it to this extension class. So configuration, and inside configuration, I will just call what is the name of my JSON object I just created. It is my SQL connection. And what is the key inside it? It is connection string. So basically this, MySQL connection and connection string. When we have our connection string, then we can say services.add db context. And now it requires the class which will implement this. So we are using repository context. I need to use repository. And you remember that repository context inherits from DB context and expects the options. So we need to pass the options here. So I'm going to say something like this. Oh, dot. Right now, I need one thing. Because I'm using MySQL, I can work just with Entity Framework Core. I need one third-party library to map all the requests to the MySQL. So what I'm going to install, it's this library with name Melo Entity Framework Core MySQL. This is just going to help us so we can store our logic for the MySQL inside this project. Here it goes. It's finished in here, great. So when I install this, I'm having this use MySQL, and you see now I can import Entity Framework Core inside. And what he expects the my connection string. So you see the connection. There is connection string. I'm sending this connection string to my repository, and the repository context through the options sends that connection string to DB context. Okay. Now all we have to do is to configure to register inside startup this method. So I will just use this because I will need the using directive. Something like this. And then above the add MVC, we can say services dot, and you will see configure MySQL context. So you see, this was this parameter. This was the name of the method. And look, we just need one more parameter, name configuration, and it's this one. So great. Right now, we are having prepared our configuration and context class, so we can continue on the repository part. Is this okay, Ray?
Yeah, it's fine. Go ahead.
Great. We are going to use lots of interfaces. So let's start. In contracts, just I will delete this one. And I will add first interface. I will call it repository base. This interface is going to have all the base methods which we need to handle the CRUD requests, CRUD actions, to be precise. So it is public interface repository base, and we are going to make it generic so that we can pass whatever class or model we want inside. What are going to need inside here, I will just copy paste this because this is just definition. We know why we are using interfaces. So you see, I will have find all, then find by condition, where we can send any predicate inside here. And if someone wonders why expression, why not just func tball, because func is just delegate and it will reference to the method. It will execute the method. But expression is going to convert the method inside the valid query for the MySQL. And this is why we're using expression. Then we have create, update, delete, and to wrap the save changes. This is just the interface, so I didn't want to make it longer, so I just copy the code. But now we are going to type some code because we need to implement this interface. There is no reason to stay like here. I'll just close this for short, not to bother us. Great. Inside repository, I'm going to create a class which will be named repository base without I.
So with that, we are creating like a standard interface that everybody will implement, and it's only one, right? So you don't have to be repeating code all the time, right?
That's right. That's right. And the main purpose of this interface is for the repository base class to know what to implement.
Yeah.
Because I'm always going to do something like this. It is going to be t and also to implement I repository base. And of course, it's also t. And because we know, we don't have to do this, but we know that we are going to send the models inside this is generic type, then we can restrict that by where t class. Of course, it complains because we didn't implement anything, but we will do that shortly. First of all, to have the connection to our database, what we need the repository context. So I'm going to create one property. It will be of type repository context, and I will just call it like that, repository context. What I want to do is two things. I want this class to be inherited and only to be used like that. So if you want any class to be inherited, to say, hey, you need to be inherited, it is going to be abstract class. Great. It is abstract class. So if I have this only to be inherited, then I want this to be accessible only in this class and in inherited class. So I don't need this to be public, but protected. Just simple access modifiers and understanding of your code. Then to the constructor, I will pass this. Remember, we have registered repository context, and IOC inside .NET Core will always serve us registered service through the constructor. So I can freely do this. Repository context, let me say repo context. And because in here, what I want to do is this dot repository context equals to parameter repo context. Now we can implement all our methods we need. So I will use just this shortcut. First of all, we need find all. Let's do it something like this. Return this repository context generic set. What are we going to set? The t which was sent, and like this. This is pretty much it. This will get us all the data of the t type which we send to find all method. Okay. Ray, may I continue?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Another one. You see, it is going to give us INumberable 2. So we need to return, and we will return this dot repository context set rt. And right now we are going to chain some link queue inside, and link queue what is going to accept well nothing more than this expression. So like this, and we will get INumberable result. Then when creating its void, for me, I like to keep it void because I like to keep the difference between command and query separation, and of course create, update, delete are always the commands. So I will say something like this: this.repository context set t, and then just add. And what are we going to add? Our entity. Update, similar, set t, just we are going to update the same entity. For delete, again, type t and remove entity. And finally, this will be just the wrapper. I like to keep it simpler to call save, not save changes, but it is just repository context.save changes, which entity framework just needs to complete your action that you are doing. Great. I have my user class, which worth me nothing without user classes to inherit from it. So let's create those user classes. And of course, for every user class, I'm going to create an interface, because user class are going to use those methods, but also they will have a specific logic of their own. So for every specific logic method, we are going to implement it through the interface. So we will create the interfaces, logic inside the interface, and then implement that method inside class. You will see how the stuff works. So let's add the interface inside. I will call it iOwner repository. It's going to be public interface. And for now, it will just stay like that. Nothing more. We will fill it later. And I need another one. I account repository. That's it. When we have our interfaces, now let's implement the user classes which are going to use our repository base. So inside the repository, let's create two new classes. First one is going to be owner repository. And this owner repository is going to inherit from repository base. So let's do it something like this. And in this time, we need to know what is the model that we will send to it. It's logically owner. And of course, it will implement iOwner repository. Of course, he is complaining because this has its constructor. We need to provide it something. So let's do something like this. Constructor. The constructor will send repository context repo context. And just what I'm going to do is to send this repo context inside the repository base class. Oops, not like that, but like this. The same thing we are going to do. I hope you understand this one. So whenever we instantiate this one, we will send the repository context, and it will just pass the constructor to this class inside here to set up this property. Pretty clear. Let's give another class inside this project. So count repository, and it's going to have same implementation. Inherit from repository base, but this time count, and I count repository, and we need this thing. That's right. Excellent. Basically, we are pretty much done with the repository pattern, and many would agree that this is the final step, because now you can write methods inside these user classes, And then you can instantiate this class and call the methods you want. But this is not the right way to do the thing. That's why we are going to create our wrapper, to wrap those two user repository classes, and then to inject that wrapper inside our service, which is the best way in .NET Core Framework, because then IOC will provide us with instance of that wrapper inside any constructor method we want. And you will see an example how this works. So again, by the same pattern, we are going to create first the interface, and I will call it iRepository wrapper. This interface is going to contain iOwner repository owner, and it's going to have account repository account. Excellent. Now, with that repository, with that wrapper in place, interface, let's create a repository wrapper inside repository class. I will call it repository wrapper, and it needs to inherit from iRepository wrapper. Two props. So first is iOwner repository owner, and second one prop iAccount repository account. And then we create a constructor with repository context inside here. And we will say this dot owner is equal to new owner repository, and look, it expects repository context, so here it is. For account repository, it accepts the same. Excellent. One last thing is to just register this stuff. And then just look at the chain of reaction in here. When I register repository wrapper, I will place it inside any constructor. Then I can call any of these properties. It will have its instance with owner repository and send the repository context. When it sends the repository context, and of course, if you look back, this, I don't need to pass this anymore because I already registered this repository context. You remember in startup class, we did it in the beginning of this course. So it will pass the repository context to this class and just forward it to this one. And there you go. We have concern separation completely. This will be concerned about the main database logic. Those repository classes will be responsible for calling just the methods from repository base, and inside the controller, we will call the methods from this class. And it is the great way in which you are clearing the responsibilities. You know what is controller responsible for, what is user class responsible for, what is the repository base responsible for. It is, I won't say the best way, but the good way for creating your project. So finally, let's insert this inside our repository, inside our IRC. For that, I will need this service extension, and I'm going to create a new extension, something like this. Public static is going to void. And just I will extend iService collection. And what I'm going to do in here is to call one of three methods which are responsible for registering the services. And we have add scoped, we have add singleton, and add transient. If anyone is unclear what those three methods do, just remember it, not to waste time right now. but I will explain it. You can ask me, I will explain it at the end of this coding process. For now, I will just use scoped. The scoped expects the interface, which is implementing the logic. So the interface is iRepository wrapper. And it expects the class that really implements the logic, and it is repository wrapper class. This is pretty much it. Inside here, all we have to do, you remember, to come inside and to just call it. So this is dot configure repository wrapper. And isn't this the better way? Inside the extension, we have our methods, but in this base logic, you have only 2 lines, which is pretty much clear to read. So great. This is it for the repository part. Now we can start diving into controller and into web API CRUD actions. Is it okay, Ray, to continue with this?
Yeah, everything's clear. If anybody has some questions, just let me know. Okay, then I pass to you.
Great. I will just leave the classes which I'm going to need. So I will remove all this. Owner repository I'm going to need. Owner repository I'm going to need. This one, and this one could be removed. I'm sorry. Okay, so inside our main project, inside controllers, I will leave this one not to delete it, but I don't need it. I will create a new controller. It will be API controller, which is empty, and just give it a name, owner controller, and let it do his thing to create this controller for us. And Ray, you can hear me well still, all right?
Yeah, everything's fine.
Great.
Perfect.
Good. Excellent. You see, every controller inherits from the controller class. And in previous version of the controllers, inside the route, you would have something like, if I could remember correctly, my God, something like this, which is also fine, but I always like to use this stuff because it really points to the controller we are going to point with our requests. And of course, this one has another attribute which says that this controller reproduces us with application.json type of data. We need our wrapper inside, and as we learned, all the registered services could be injected through the constructor. So this is all what we are going to do right now. I will create some private variable of type iRepository wrapper and just call it repository. Then I need my constructor to accept this type, and of course to initialize it like this. Now we can start with writing our methods. So the main pattern for me is going to be whenever I need some method, some logic to create, because it is going to be the logic inside this class, first I will need to create for his own interface the contract for that method, or how it should be implemented. So let's go inside, and I will first create something like this. Enumerable of I need owner. Of course, because we are in the contracts, we need to add reference of entities for that. So great, and I will just call it get all owners. That's it. So it will return us more than one owner, or just one, doesn't matter. Inside, we need to implement it. So let's do it like this. Public owner. So, oops, I'm sorry. get all owners. And you will see how straightforward this logic is. What I need to do? Well, I need to call the method. No, I need to call the method from this class. And which is it? Just this one. So let's do it. Return, find all. And I will just attach some link inside so we could have the ordered by the name our owners. So dot order by for this requires link queue, and we will order it by name. That's it. Now we can go inside the controller. We'll create the get method, and here it is. It knows it is the get method right now. It will return iAction result, which is a pretty much generic return point for the any web API action inside the controller, because it accepts also the methods which returns the status codes, which you will see just about now, and get all owners. We'll call it like that. Just wrap it up inside try catch this part, and inside here, if we get inside the catch, it means that some server error happened. So what are we going to do is to return exact status code for that, and it is 500. Also, I'm going to write just a message, internal server. If you want, you don't need to do this because you don't need to return the message to the base user, but just for this type, so this doesn't stay unused, I will place something like this. In here, we are getting our owners. And look at this. I will just point one thing for you right now, so you could understand what I've been talking about. As I'm saying, base class is responsible only for getting the data from the database, and the base methods like find by condition, create, update, delete. Owner repository, and it only will be responsible for getting the data from the repository base, and controller is going to be responsible for getting the responses from these methods inside the user repository class. Am I right? Yes. Well, I am right, because you see I have my account, I have my owner. It's repository wrapper. So I don't need to say var accounts equals to new account, var owner equals to new owner, and in many controllers as much as I need them. There's no point in that. You see, just by injecting a repository wrapper, I have access to both my properties. I will use owner. If I type .uc, I get only get all owners, nothing more from that. So I'm going to use get all owners. And because good request, good handling the request of the request requires to return OK result. OK result has the status code 200, and Web API has something like this, return OK, and just pass the object inside. If you look at OK, I don't know if you can see it, but down there you will see status 200 OK response. I will save this thing, and I'll pray that I did everything good now. So I'll just start it so I could test if this works well. I am starting the application. As you can see, it has started and it is on localhost 5000. And I will use the Postman to send the request. So here it is, get all owners. Ignore this. This is just previous testing. We have a localhost 5000/API/owner, which is the endpoint for our method. I will send this one, and great, there it is. You see, status is 200 OK, and we see our 4 objects inside our database, which is pretty correct. So our repository pattern works. We are using it correctly, and also we have a valid HTTP GET handle method inside our web API. Now we can continue with this. Is it okay, Ray, to continue right now?
Yeah, it's okay. Okay.
Great. Another one, I will get by ID. It's pretty common use. So if I want to get something by ID, first things first. It will return by ID, so it needs to return just one owner. I will say return owner, get owner by ID, and it accepts owner ID of type GUID, of course. Now, in the repository, you're going to implement that. So public owner, get owner by ID. And in here, we are going to use find by condition method. So return find by condition. It expects some link expression. And the expression is pretty straightforward lambda expression. Owner.id equals to owner ID, owner ID inside this. Oh, I'm writing well. Hope so. Yep. And right now, look, this is going to return enumerable. We need just one owner, and many will do something like this, first or default. And this is pretty okay, because if it returns any result, we are taking the first one. If it doesn't return because owner ID is scrambled, it's not valid, it will return null. Well, this is something I want to avoid, and I want to avoid working with nulls as much as I can. I'm not saying that we can avoid it all the time, but as much as we can, because null can cause us exceptions of many different reasons. So to avoid returning null, I will do something before first or default, something like this. Default if empty. And now all I have to return is new owner. Of course, it's up to you to return whatever you want, but I'm leading myself with this thought that we are doing object-oriented programming, so there is no need to return nulls. Let's return at least a new empty object with which we can work much easier. So this is some handling stuff of avoiding nulls. It's good practice. I don't know if you want to use it, great, but I'm using it. And we will see the advantage of this when we get the owner with the details, when we need to take accounts also into our object, how this will help us. Okay, we have this in owner repository, and now inside owner, let's create another HTTP get. And this HTTP get method is going to have its own implementation, but just prior to this, we will have now to check. You see, this still can return empty object. So we have to check if it is an empty object, because if it is an empty object, this owner ID was bad. We couldn't find it, so we should return 404, not found. So without any too much complication inside controller, I will create just another extension method. And this extension method will be used for any model that inherits from identity. For now, we have owner and account, but if you introduce any other model into your project and inherits from identity, these extensions could be useful for you. So let's create a new class. It is going to be named identity extensions. As we said, needs to be static. And I will create two base methods, public static will return bool to see if is object null, and we will call it upon entity. And inside you will use that null object because it can be null. There is no other way that we can check it. So we'll just say return entity equals to null. If you need to use it, then it's better, the best way to use it inside extension, which is hidden from the base business logic. So this is the first one, and the second one, and it is much readable if you show something if entity equals null, or if you say if this object is object null. So it's much easier to read. Another one is public static bool is empty object, and this will be called upon the same entity. And we will use this one for our get method right now. So just we will say return entity.id that equals GUID.empty. Completely valid expression. Why? Because if we return here, this is bad, we will return new owner with all the default properties. So this is pretty much valid inside. Owner extensions, we don't have it in here, so we need to use them. Yes, and then let's create this method. HTTP get, we will give it because it needs an ID. So we need to say, okay, the param you're going to get is going to be an ID. And also I will give it a name. And you will see when we create an entity, why I'm giving this method a name. I will call it owner by ID. Again, it will return action result. I will call it get owner by ID. And it will accept type GUID ID. Same stuff as above. So I will use this X, just copy this thing. My bad. Okay. And in here, first, we want to get this owner by ID. So let's say like this, owner repository dot owner dot get owner by ID. You see the second method. And inside it expects an ID. Now this ID could be an empty object. So we can say something like this. If this owner is empty object. Pretty clear. If it is the empty object, it means it's not existing in our database. So we are returning 404. We could use status code as we used here and send 404 in some message, or there is a better way to return not found. And if you can see, it returns status 404 not found response. Else, if it is a full object, then we will return our 200 response or OK with owner. Excellent. So this is another method finished. So let's just take a minute to test it, if it works. Our application is up. I will say get owner by ID. You see this ID, or we can take anyone. Let's take this first one. Like this. So again, you see the endpoint, localhost 5000 /API /owner /ID. Send. And there you go. We have our data. Also, if we scramble it somehow and send, you see, or you maybe not see it because it is too small, but trust me, it is 404 not found. So we are getting pretty good responses right now. Great, we have this implemented here. So just one more get method, and this will be owner with the accounts, all related accounts to it. And you are familiar with the DTOs in the development, and this is what I'm going to use. I don't like to my base models make dirty because they are the complete representation of my table in database. If I need another additional properties inside it, then I will just create a new class, a new model. So this is exactly what I'm going to do. Inside entities, I will create something with name owner extended. And I see this class here all the way. So Just I will remove it. It also needs to inherit from I entity. And because the logic is pretty much straightforward, I will just copy paste it inside, and of course I will find it. As you can see, we have all the base properties. I need this one. All the base properties, and we have the accounts because we can chain more accounts to the one owner. We have this extended base constructor, and we have overriding constructor which accepts parameter of object owner and just map to all these properties from this owner. So basically, whenever we have our owner, our base owner, we can create this owner extended just by calling this constructor. It will do auto mapping inside here, and then we can also call any logic to fill up these accounts property. So let's do exactly that. Inside iOwner repository, we want to get iOwner extended, so like this. Owner extended, and I need using directive get owner with details. Also, it will accept owner ID. Going here to implement it. So I call it get owner with details. Good ID. And look at this now. Do I have a method for returning owner by ID? Yes, I have. This is the one. So what I can write is just something like this. Create right away new owner extended, and inside it, just call this method for me and pass it the ID. I will need to fill up the accounts. Just to explain one thing. Right now, if you remember this one, if we didn't have this part of code, and imagine someone sent the scrambled owner ID, inside we would return a null. Then this object would be the null. And if we send the null to this constructor, you all know what is going to happen. Null reference exception, and this is not something we want to programming, because no one is learning programming to program null reference exception. So this is why this part of code is really important. And inside, we just want to fill up all the accounts that corresponds to this ID, to this owner. So we'll say something like this. Owner, we'll call repository context from the repository base class, call all the accounts, and then just chain the link queue for that. I will say dot where a as account, a dot owner ID is equal to this ID which I have sent from the from the method which we'll call this method. So there it is. We have get owners by with ID, and let's implement it inside our controller. And inside here, owner with details is pretty straightforward logic as this one, previous one. So just let's do something like this. You see, endpoint now is going to be API /owner details /ID. This is the ID. It starts called 500, and we are getting that owner by calling the get owner with details. If it is the empty object, again, not found. In exception to that, else we are getting OK owner. So there it is. Let's save it. Start the app. So I'm talking hour and 5. I believe in 15-20 minutes I will be finished. So check it out. We'll code get owner with details. I will send it. And you see we are getting our owner and also all the accounts related to the owner. Again, if I scramble the ID, you'll see 404 not found. Here. So excellent. We have working another HTTP request. Let's go further. We need to create the owner inside the database. So again, the base principle. So void create owner, and we need to send the owner which we need to create. Then we are going to implement this. So inside this, I will say create owner. Accept that owner, and you will see how clear logic for this is. First of all, ID is served inside the backend here, so we will create a new ID for it. Owner.id is equal to GUI.new GUI. And then all we have to do is to call create, send the owner we want to create, and call the save. You see how clear this is. And inside owner controller, let's create our controller. It is going to be the post request. And let's lift it up like this. So public action result, call create owner, and inside here we will call from body, because we want this complex object to be sent from body. It's much safer and easier to implement. So of type owner, this owner. Another thing, if you want to learn more about these HTTP requests, about handling data and how you can return different type of data, not only application, JSON, but XML, stuff like that, please, again, if you have time, visit our blog. You will see many related content about this stuff. So we have all this inside here. Let's wrap it up in here. Copy this one because it's the same. And here, first thing first. Could this be null? Yes, it could be, because we accept this from the client. He maybe didn't send it or something like that. So we're going to ask for that. If owner is object null. It's pretty much self-explanatory what this method does. If it is null, well, it is not found, it is bad request. So we will use bad request. Bad request, as you can see, returns the status code 400, which is status code for bad request. And we just say owner object is null. Then, again, you can remember these properties, required, string length, stuff like that. They are here for the reason. So let's check this reason. We will check if model is not valid. So we're using exclamation point. Model state is valid. If any of these fields are not fulfilled, are not required, then they will throw an error, or this one will throw an error and say it is not a valid object. So we will return again bad request with invalid model object. When you have this, we can save our owner into the database. So repository.owner.create owner and send it to owner. Finally, we need to return something. And for the creation, usually you should return 201. It stands for created. But this is a very good method for returning 201 status code. Something like this. Return created at route. You will see what it's going to do. Not only that it will return 201 status code, but it will only create inside the headers the route for us from which we can get this owner we just have created. And you will see this inside the Postman when I send this type of request. So created a route. There you go. When I said why we need this one, we need the name to send the name at which route. So this is the route. Then this route expects an ID, so one anonymous object, one property ID, and it is owner.id. And in the end, very owner we just created. So great, we have create owner. Now I will start.
Yeah, there's something important also to tell people that in your signature there is a from body expected, right? So it's saying that it's expecting that the values are coming from a body post, right?
That's right. It's coming from a body, not from the request URI. Because try to imagine this complicated object to the URI. You had to stringify it to create query strings and then to parse it inside here and stuff like that. It is much more readable and much more easier and safer to send it to the from body part. And this is what we are going to do for the create and also for the update, because we need to send owner object from the client. Okay.
Okay.
Great. So let me start this. So this is create. As you can see, it's localhost 5000 /API/owner. Inside the body, I'm having this one without ID, of course, which I'm going to create. And the headers has their content type. Nope. This one, okay. I see, yeah, content type application JSON. First, just to put this up. So if I send it, did I start it for owner? Okay. I didn't get anything right now. I hope I didn't mess it up. Let's try something like this. Create owner. Okay, great. It's the body. I didn't move it inside here. I'll show it later. You see, it returned us created object with new ID. It returned us status code 201. And also, if you look at headers, look at location. We have the URI. And if I copy this one, paste it inside here, and send this request, as you can see, this is the URI on which we can get fetch created data. So this is the main point of the method created route. I will just delete this one. I don't need it. So create owner is here, and we have created it very well. Then we can continue. For the update part, it's put request. So let's do it something like this, because it's straightforward. I need these two. Then I just need another thing. Update is work like this. I will receive ID. It's some REST rules. I will receive the ID of the owner and the same owner which I need to update with updated fields. Then all I need to do is to get my owner from the database based on ID which I received, and then to map all the changed properties from this one to this one, and then just to save it into database. For this mapping part, I also like to create an extension. So inside entities, I will create another class, and I will call it owner extensions. It's going to be, of course, public static class extensions. And this method is going to be, I will call it map. It is void because we are sending the reference type, so it will reference right away. And we are going to call it upon the owner. It is DB owner, and we will pass another one with which we want to map. So I will call this one owner. And the logic, it's pretty straightforward, something like this. So every property is just mapped. So if anyone wants to ask, why don't I use automapper or stuff like that? Well, you see, I have 3 lines of code, but feel free to use it. It is great. Or just, I don't want to use it. I don't want to complicate it even more for this type of project, which is not too big. Okay, I have owner extensions. So all I need to do is say these entities inside this to create public void update owner. We expect owner type. Okay, it is good. We expect DB owner, and we expect just the owner. First, let's map it. So all the properties which are mapped on the client, updated on the client, are going to refer to this one. Then I will need to update that DB owner, and in the end, just I want to save it. Owner controller. This is the class I need. Right, yes I am. So inside here, let's create our HTTP put request. And it is going to accept an ID. So public action result update owner. It accepts first param as ID, and then again from body of type owner. We'll have a couple of checks inside here because it's a little bit complicated action than to create, but still it is pretty straightforward. First, again, this could be a null object. So we are going to say if owner.is null is object null, we are going to return bad request. So basically, we are doing this thing on object is null. We are doing the same stuff as we did in here for just this part. So just let's copy paste this inside here. It's the same logic. Then if this owner passed those 2 validations, then we can get our DB owner from the database based on this ID. And we have a method for that. So we just say repository dot owner get owner by ID. Here you have the ID. And now we have another situation which this could be an empty object. So if DB owner is empty object. If it is an empty object, right here we are not returning bad request, but not found. Great. If all these validation are good, then let's update it. Repository dot owner update owner, and we need to send DB owner and owner sent from the client. Okay, and finally we need to return something. When you're doing update, basically you return no content, not like create for 201. You return no content, which is 204. So let's return no content, which basically means update is successfully, as with delete. Also will return no content. Now it should be the valid method. I'm going to start it. I'm sorry. Great, project is up. I will get owners and I will take just this one. Mark Martin, you see it. I will change his ID. So its name is Martin, and it lives on Sunny Street 16. Very creative, isn't it? And then we are going to update this guy. So I will just change the ID, and I will send it Moon Street 78. So I will send this request. And I'm getting 204 no content, which means it's everything okay. So if I come to get all owners, and really I see Moon Street inside here. So we really updated this entity. And the last one is the delete, pretty much the same as the previous ones. So let's just do it like this. This is something we need as an interface, an owner to delete it. Then inside repository, it is pretty much clear logic. Of course, there is not much to do inside here. You see, we're just calling delete owner and on the save. And finally, inside the controller, we are creating our controller with some validation rules. It's going to be HTTP delete. It accepts an ID. We are taking that owner by ID and just checking because it could be an empty object. If it is not found. If it's not, just we are deleting it and return no content. This is something which needs to be solved inside here. Great, I will save this one. I speed it up a little bit because you see it's pretty the same as all previous ones we created. So I will start the project to check this one finally. Great. I will delete the same owner as I updated. So you remember now we have 5 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the, okay. It's the localhost 5000 API owner ID. Send, and we are getting 204. So it's successfully no content. Get all owners 1, 2, 3, 4. So great, we deleted it as well. So great, guys. This is all from the coding part from me. I hope you find it interesting and useful. And please, if you have now some questions or any related thoughts to this, please share it.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. You basically we went through creating and updating and deleting the data, right? With web API, very interesting. I'm open for question. I'll see if anybody has some kind of question, then I'll let you know, okay?
Ok.
Any questions? Galera, ele já fez aqui a parte da criação, né, de leitura. Ele fez um curso completo, e aí ele gostaria de agradecer a todos. E a gente vai deixar aberto aí, se tiver alguma dúvida, alguma coisa, até mesmo sugestão aí, para um próximo Hangout também. Então, eu queria ver com vocês aí. Se alguém tiver nenhuma pergunta, a gente vai finalizar. Eu agradeço a todos também pela participação. Ver se tem alguma pergunta aqui.
I hope they don't sleep.
Yeah, no, but everybody understood, because if there is no question, there is no doubt.
Oh, well, it seems that I did a great job then, right?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think there is no question. And so if you want to, maybe you want to share your articles, your page, you want to share your screen.
Okay, I can do something like this. I hope you won't mind me on doing this, but I could share it, and also if you want, then I will do just something like this.
Oh, yeah.
You see .NET Core series. Inside, you will have all the lectures which I've just been speaking about tonight, and even more which is about to come. And in every one of those, you will find the code, so you can just take here, and you see there is the source code available on GitHub, stuff like that. So at least you can visit this, or if you want, there is a GitHub also, so you can find the coding site here. So I think it's pretty safe to use it like this, however you want. If you think that I should share with you and then you share with other guys, it's okay too. For me, I will send the code, but they can straightforward download it from these links inside the codes, inside the post over here.
Okay, I think it's fine if they find that on the website, same code basically, right?
Yeah, and also I'm pretty sure that they would learn and find out even more stuff about this, what I was talking about tonight, because we didn't have time all night to speak about it.
Yeah, right. So, Marinko, thank you very much. You did a great job here, and thank you for accepting to talk with us. The Brazilian developers are great developers also. I look forward to talk with Serbian people also very soon. We can try to arrange that. So, once again, thank you very much, and it was great. Really.
Yeah, thank you, Ray, and thank you all the guys for having me there.
Thank you.
Ok.
Galera, boa noite. Então, nós vamos finalizar aqui a nossa live. Muito obrigado a todos. Se vocês tiverem alguma dúvida, depois eu posso mandar aqueles links lá também. Então, um grande abraço para vocês e a gente se encontra numa próxima live aí. Beleza? Grande abraço para todos.
Goodbye.